Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan battle video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at the evil genius Demon God Salsa. Very weird that they always double put the title in the name, but hey, it happens. And he is a crossover category key +3 and HP attack and defense, a 77% lead. He's also a tech type lead of 50%, although this isn't too important. He greatly raises attack and defense for one turn on a super attack, and he causes supreme damage to the enemy and seals their super attack as well, which is a pretty useful ability to have for things like SBR and ESBR. Then in terms of his passive, he has key +3, attack and defense of 100%, with attack and defense of +20% up to 80%, and chance of evading the enemy's attack, including super attack, +15% up to 45% per crossover category ally on the team. He also gets an additional chance of evading the enemy's attack, including super attack of +5% per existing enemy up to 25%, and he gets an additional attack of 20% up to 60% and defense of 10% up to 30%, with each attack evaded including super attack. So obviously the thing is if you face only one enemy, he will basically have 50% if you're on a full crossover team. If you are facing up to 5 enemies, you will have up to 70% evasion, which is pretty useful for a lot of situations. He has Loyalty, Master of Magic, Prodigies, Thirst for Conquest, Brainiac, Shocking Speed, and Sharing the Limit. And he is on Dragon Ball Z's Time Travelers, Terrifying Conquerors, Dragon Ball Heroes, and Crossover. Overall, I think he's a pretty good unit. I think his EZA elevated him the most comparatively to some of the other units. If you look, for example, Poutine was kind of good before her EZA, and her EZA made her better, whereas Salsa was just kind of bad upon release, and then this EZA has made him actually pretty solid. So I think he got elevated the most, like from being a unit that just was never usable upon release to actually being a pretty solid option now as a unit, and I've used him in some pretty difficult content. So obviously the big thing is his link set's a little bit stranger than some other link sets. When you look at Extreme Dragon Ball Heroes, generally speaking there is a bit of a Brainiac's Cold Judgment kind of Thirst for Conquest trend, and so he does tend to have some of those, but then it kind of gets hit with Master of Magic, Prodigies, and Loyalty, which are distinctly difficult links to kind of just get out of nowhere. So that's maybe the only real hindrance, I would say, to him as a unit. Other than that, his link set is what I would deem to be pretty solid overall in terms of just general performance. I think when you look at him as a unit, yeah, obviously the evasion is an important mechanic, but I think he's just in general a pretty interesting, viable option on a crossover team. Obviously, because of his passive, I wouldn't necessarily place him at all on any team that you can't feature at least the 4 or 3 crossover units on, because it does make a significant difference, especially to the evasion portion of his passive, and it matters quite a bit. So you can see here 130,000 in terms of his overall performance, which honestly isn't that bad. If we shift him into the center, where you can grab Thirst for Conquest, that jumps up quite a bit to 166k, and that's a lot to do with Silas. Silas and him share a very decent amount of links, and yeah, overall he looks pretty solid, I would say. Obviously, attack wise as well, he's a pretty decent unit with 2.1 million, but that will increase as things go. So if he can get some evasions, then that will slowly start to ramp up as well, which is pretty good. Obviously, I think just looking at him on paper or looking at him as a unit, I think you see the building blocks of what is a very, maybe a bit more niche, but very solid unit here. Obviously, the big things I would say is that he is quite evasive, alternating between 50 to 70% depending on how many enemies you face is pretty reliable. Obviously it's not maybe like the 70% dodge levels consistently, but the fact that he can at least sit on the 50% side of the spectrum, I think is pretty good for him overall. So yeah, I don't know. I'm very, very chuffed with his overall kind of performance. I think his presentation is very good. Here you can see his defense shoots up to 171. This is kind of best case scenario without any evasive stacks built. So if he had evaded a couple times, we'd be looking at a little bit higher. But generally speaking, this is his best case scenario without having built up any defensive stacks. So yeah, he is pretty good, I would say. I don't think he's, you can look at the other EZA, some of the heroes units that hit 6 million, 5 million attack stats and things like that. Obviously, he's not at that level distinctly, but he is still an incredibly good unit overall. And I think, it would be quite silly to say that he isn't a very, very solid unit. Obviously, link-wise, I think there's a lot of value here. Loyalty, for example, is a great link, but it's incredibly difficult for him to come by. Not a lot of units have it. I think Debura has it. Debura is one of those units. Thirst of Conquest, great link. Lots of units have it, so that is a pretty big buff. Same with Brainiacs. It's not a link that's maybe super prevalent, but it's prevalent enough on the Dragon Ball Heroes team that it's actually quite fine. Like, it's actually an accessible link on the Dragon Ball Heroes team. Like here you're going to see we've got all the kind of major links active. 145,000, 150k, it's all pretty good stuff. And yeah, he's going to have increased attack, which is great, and yeah, just in general looking pretty good. I think the only real thing they could have done is obviously in some way given them big bad bosses, but it's very unlucky. You can see that 3 evasions kick in and the attack stat jumps to 3.2 million. So very, very big difference between non-evasive or the Demon God Salsa that hasn't evaded and a Demon God Salsa that has evaded. The one that hasn't evaded hits about 2.1. The one that has hits about 3.2. It's quite a sizable difference, and the same kind of ruling applies to the defense. Raw defense all of a sudden goes from being like 170k at max to being over 200k at max, which is obviously good, to be honest with you. So yeah, overall I think he looks pretty good. As I was saying, his link set there's a lot of value in leveling it, but it is also very, very, very difficult to level it. So Thirst for Conquest, obviously great link, adds additional defense. Brainiacs gives you both defense and attack. Shocking Speed gives you defense. Sharing Limit gives you both defense and attack. Prodigies gives you a bit of an attack, and Masters of Magic gives you a bit of an attack, and Loyalty gives you key plus damage reduction. The big thing for him is his key links are Shattering the Limit, Shocking Speed, and Loyalty. Loyalty is a bit more of a left field link, so ideally you want to kind of focus on just getting Shocking Speed or Shattering the Limit and then grabbing Thirst for Conquest and Brainiacs. If you can get Thirst for Conquest, Brainiacs, and one of Shocking Speed or Shattering the Limit, then you're looking to be in a decent place. Not saying you're going to be, like absolutely breaking him. There's still some pretty powerful links left off the table, but generally speaking, you're getting all of his defense, you're getting key, and you are getting his attack and defense. Fortunately, you don't need too many key links active. He does have key plus 3 in his passive, so he is pretty self-sufficient when it comes to key, and I think that's something that is always important for units like this, especially units where in reality you'll probably float Demon God Salsa. You're not going to run him as like a main unit. So I think for me, he's definitely a unit that's a lot of, is interesting, I should say. Is a very, very, very solid kit now. I think he's a great alternative option for a lot of teams. He's great for SBR, he's great for ESBR, he's quite solid in a variety of content. And yeah, I think in general you can use him to do a lot of hard content. It just depends a little bit, obviously, on whether you get, like, how can I say, the 200% leads for Dragon Ball Heroes. Obviously that does help him out quite a bit, because he is quite restrictive on categories. I think that is something I will admit. Considering unique crossover unit, he is basically essentially restricted to crossover heroes or time travelers teams. to be blunt with you. But beyond that, he is still pretty good. I do think there's a lot of good reasons to use him, and I think in general you should have a pretty fun time using him. I think he's a good unit. He's a little bit of a mixed bag, a little bit of everything. Sealing, evasion, all of that type of stuff. It's pretty solid in general, and he's pretty interesting to look at. But yeah, overall, pretty good unit, pretty nice CZA, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.